welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Pocket Locker Podcast. I'm your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, good people, I am in airplane mode, gang. We got like a whole ass legit podcast for you tonight. Doing something we don't normally do. Normally it's just me ranting or reacting or doing the whatever. And on Sunday mornings, we're doing a hot program at 12:30 p.m. Eastern with my one black friend. But today, y'all, we had a very special guest. So as some of you may know, I recently went out to the Ark Encounter protest in Kentucky, and it was a super cool experience. It was like my first time actually meeting people from this space in person, so that was super cool. And one of the people I met out there that unfortunately I did not get a chance to chat with as much as we wanted to is a gentleman by the name of Seth Moore, who actually used to work at the Ark Encounter. So Seth was kind enough to agree to come on to the podcast. So yeah, welcome Seth Moore, and yeah, let's get started. Hey Seth.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, man. Thanks so much for coming. I don't know. Let's give the people the side by side. See how that goes. I don't know. Yeah, like so just before we get started, tell us how you ended up in at the event in Kentucky.
Yeah, so I was raised in a fundy family, and in college, especially, I became really interested in creationism. And after college, I ended up moving out here to the Cincinnati area to work for AIG for that was like my dream job, what I'd kind of geared up for my
Wow.
entire education. And after a few years working here, I'd been through a few different religious things and was sort of trying to figure out where I stood on faith and ended up deconverting. But the first time I was at the protest was while I was still an employee, and I just went there to check it out. And then that drew me back in after I quit and walked out of the faith and stuff.
Wow, that's insane. All right, so we got a lot of ground to cover. But yeah, I think I wanted to maybe start with your background a bit. Also, cheers, gang, and Seth, thanks for joining me. I don't know, gang. I gotta get used to the whole. I'm used to the wide camera. The thing is reversed, so when I move one direction, I actually move the other direction. I'll figure it out. It's all right. It's Friday. We're live. We're just gonna have a good time. Um,
Can I ask you a question real quick
yeah,
before
sure.
we? And I hope this is not. I don't know if it's off limits or anything,
No, no, it's
but
fine.
I saw some of your older videos, and you had a mane,
A wig.
and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
green. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just curious, like, what was the story behind that?
It's just a different persona that Heartbreak J. So I just kind of took we took a little break, but I got a new one. So
Okay.
we're thinking about bringing it back. So yeah, we just got to get some stuff set up. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, keep it locked on the channel. So yeah, but I get that comment a lot. So which is good. That's good. That's good to see that people missed that. We had a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to bringing it back. Um, yeah. So, what was what was your family like growing up? Because I come from like a pretty fundy family too, especially on my mom's side. They're like hardcore Pentecostal. Like my
Mm.
grandparents are Pentecostal ministers, um, and so uh, it's uh, it's tough now because I feel estranged from them. Like Jesus is their whole identity, and I just like can't even stomach it
Yes.
anymore. So it's become really difficult for me to be around my own family, which is tough because my grandparents are kind of in their later stages or whatever, and I wish I could be around more, but I just it's just a mess. But yeah, what were your folks like growing up? Because you said you had an interest in creationism, so was
Yeah.
your
Well, my parents, they were both grew up Christian, Lutheran, and Methodist, but in high school and college, when they started going out, they got really involved in Campus Crusade. So they're part of the whole like
oh wow
non-denominational
crew,
Christian
yeah.
church segment of things. And my dad, especially, was is very convinced of creationism. He was always like he was the one who really enforced that. I grew up with trying to think of Gish Gallop, Dwayne Gish. Grew up on his books for kids. And
Really?
my parents actually went to the same high school as Kent Hovind.
Oh my goodness.
About 10 or 15 years after him, so they never met. But my mom's aunt remembered growing up near, or had, I think her kids grew up near him.
Wow.
So
So when you say you were raised on creation, it's sort of like, because when I look back at my family, right, there was sort of I don't know, just I felt like they were trying to make everything about God and infuse God into like every activity. Like,
mm-hmm.
like praying for traveling mercies or whatever. Like you can't leave the driveway without acknowledging God. But it didn't really feel like they ever pushed creationism on us, right? Like I don't ever feel like they were ever that educated to even understand how central
Yeah,
that was or whatever. But would you say like in your house, like your dad was like, no, like I want you to like you, in other words, you were like kind of groomed in the house to be anti-Darwin, maybe like
yeah.
explicitly?
Well, I remember the first thing, other than those books that we just had at the house, the first thing that was really uh, kind of formative with creationism is my dad took me to a presentation at church from some creationist speaker. I don't remember who it was, and he doesn't either. I'm not sure if it was early AIG stuff or ICR or some other group,
Right,
but
right.
we were like, I was enthralled with it. I was maybe between 10 and 12 years old, and picked up some books, and dad was like, oh, that was really interesting, but I don't really care if we go back again. But I really wanted to go back. I was
Yeah.
obsessed with dinosaurs and just trying to fit the world into a story, and creationism really did it for me. Once I heard all the pieces and how they fit together, then I became obsessed with it. And then a few years after that, we started. My mom pulled us out of public school and was homeschooling us on a Becca curriculum. So
What's
after
that stand for?
Becca is the curriculum pushed out by Pensacola Christian University or Christian College. It's
Okay.
a
Okay.
really fundy school in Pensacola, Florida. Similar to Bob Jones,
And they just
Liberty.
got like sort of a pre-packaged homeschool
Mhm.
curriculum that you can just, I guess, get into pretty easily.
Yeah, they write homeschool curriculum, private school, and it's all Christian nationalist, young Earth creationist, just all that garbage. Um,
What I think is interesting now, thinking back even to like my own upbringing. Okay, so my my mom's parents are like fundy Pentecostals. They're in Jersey. They're not too far from where I live now. The church that they minister. Um, but I grew up in the Poconos with my mom, and we went to this also like non-denominational thing, which to me, when I look back at it now, is super fundy evangelical, but for us, relative to my grandparents, it felt like we were like a progressive, diverse church, or I don't know,
mhm.
whatever. But one of the reasons we ended up leaving that church was because the pastor was like very clearly like trying to build a whole empire and build himself up as like he wanted to be over top of a big thing, right? And so part of it was like the school, right? Because the past he had come from some church called like Brooklyn Tabernacle. They had like a big gospel ministry in a school, so he was trying to like recreate that in where we lived. I mentioned that to say though, I remember when he started the school, because that was like a big thing, was we didn't want to, we didn't support the school, didn't think we needed a school. We didn't think the church needed to have a school. Like there were good public schools and reputable schools in the area. So, but now when I look back at it, I remember some of those early curricular materials, and I look back and I think, okay, so I do remember there was supposed to be like a math component, right? And there's supposed to be like a English component. I don't know how else to put it. Some language skills, right? But then I feel like obviously a lot of the stuff was just the child indoctrination type Bible stuff, and that was obviously the main thing. So what was it like to actually, because I never actually went to that school or never actually was homeschooled, what was it like to actually be homeschooled? How much do you feel like, because I guess your mom, this would have been your parents maybe homeschooling you, right?
Yeah, my mom has a teaching degree, and so
Oh, very
she taught
interesting.
us like up to the standards of school. In fact, I think in some areas I was ahead of my grade.
Wow.
And she pulled
Okay.
us out for the school district was not very good where we were. So I mean, it was
I
academic
got you.
reasoning, but it was like in her world, you had to pick Christian curriculum.
I
And
see.
there was a thriving homeschool community where we were, and they had book fairs and stuff. So she would go there to get her curriculum, and we were part of this big co-op, and everyone there was a Christian. Everyone there was a creationist. Like
Wow.
everyone had the same worldview, um, and so it was just kind of priming for that sort of indoctrination. But I don't think it was like intentional, as much as just like uh, absorbing from the collective world that we were in.
Was it, yeah, did it also feel very like warm and fuzzy most of the time, and like most of the
Mhm.
people are not really all that critical about it? Everybody's just we're all just good Christians here
Yeah, I'd say
type
so.
deal. Yeah.
And I'm not diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I'm on the spectrum, and so it kind of the isolated learning and being by myself, I think it kind of helped me do better academically, at least
Oh,
in
like you think
grade
you would?
school.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the same thing. I wasn't homeschooled, like I said, but I went to very small schools, like 50 kids in my graduating
Mhm.
class. And then I went to Penn State, which is like the biggest school possible. And I think I would not have survived K through 12, like in a larger, like public school setting. Yeah, because I don't think I
Mhm.
had the whatever it is I would have needed to stay focused.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
we went back to public school after my dad got a new job, and I was 10th grade. But even at that public school that we moved to, all the Christians or all the teachers that I know of were Christian, and I had managed to somehow get away with not taking any biology class or anything like that. I guess because of the transfer credit I had, sort of from freshman year homeschool, sort of covered it.
I
So
see. Yeah.
I didn't even encounter any real science courses um, related to evolution, biology, even geology until college. And I was going to a more fundamentalist church in high school. Once I could drive, I had joined a very staunch literalist, progressive, or young Earth creationist church.
Wait,
Um,
was this a different church than your parents were attending?
yeah, yeah. So they're still with the whole like kind of crew adjacent Christian church sort of movement, I guess. And I went to an fundamentalist church in high school that I found out about through some friends at school. So
What did
But
that? What did? Sorry, what did that tension feel like at the time? Like what? Like what? Like in your head, what was the Like what was drawing you to that other church?
part of it was friends, and part of it was just a lot more academic. The pastor there was like he would go through the Bible like exegetically. That was his big thing.
Sure.
Just go through chapter by chapter and explain it all. But he was very studious. Presented it all with like this academic um, authority, and he was adjacent to what's the guy's name from who just passed away? The guy in California.
I don't know. Did we just lose a big minister? I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden.
I'm seeing somebody in the chat knows. Hey
Uh,
Wayne.
I
Seth, do you have a channel? Some people asked me in the chat. PC asked me. Sorry.
No, I don't. All my socials are under the Imago Monkey thing, but I don't do anything on Facebook or on YouTube. I mean,
What's the handle? Do you want to put it in the chat?
Yeah, it's under my name, Imago Monkey.
How do I spell that?
IMAGOMONKIE, and sometimes there's an underscore there if I can't get the whole one word.
Got you. All right,
John MacArthur. There we go. That's what.
John MacArthur. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, cool. So, so you think the church was adjacent to John MacArthur? So did it feel like your family church was like a maybe like an emotional, social experience, and this was making you feel like you were like going deeper, like more into, I don't know, the intellectual side of it was starting to draw you?
Yeah, definitely. My parents' church, like they're not charismatic necessarily, but they're very loose on doctrine and more about the kind of self-help style sermons. Take a topic and look up a couple of verses that apply to it, sort of thing.
Sure. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. All right, so yeah, so tell me about this ambitious path you go on then, I guess, from high school to college to the point that you're looking at something like AIG as like an ideal opportunity.
Yeah, so in high school, I consider it really starting at 14 and continuing basically through 29. Around that time is when I first started to really get excited about creationism. I was reading books, following AIG's website daily, and just trying to absorb as much content as I could. And then in high school, I started going to the fundamentalist church, and everyone there believed it. And then when I went off to college for a couple of years, I went to Cedarville University, which is near Dayton, Ohio. It's
I've heard of the Cedarville.
Yeah, it's a young Earth creationist university, and so I went there wanting to work down at the Ark in the summer, or at the Christian Museum in the summer, but it never ended up working out that way. But
I didn't realize. I was trying to look back because my mom used to live in that area for a while.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, and well, she lived near Dayton, but so you hear more of but you hear about the different schools people come from.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was a creationist school.
Mm-hmm. It's a small Baptist university near Wright Pat, Yellow Springs, that area. And anyway, so when we went to check out the school in my senior year, we went to the Creation Museum. I think it was the second year they were open, and I was just obsessed after that.
Really?
So, like that sort of just dictated the way that I wanted my life to go. After a couple of years, I couldn't afford to keep going to that school, so I transferred to a state school to finish my degree. But I still had it in my head, when I graduate, I want to go to work at the Ark Encounter because they had been talking about
So
building that.
Cedarville's pricey, like these private, I guess, some of these
Oh, hell
private
yeah.
Baptist schools, yeah.
Hmm.
And then is there not like that's just interesting. I didn't think I hadn't thought about that. You can get like financial aid, right? Like, can you get public financial aid to go there? Or
I don't remember. I don't think
okay,
I qualified for FAFSA, and I
I
ended up
see.
getting a scholarship through ROTC with the Air Force. Hated that. Hated it.
Wow. All right. Where did you end up after Cedarville?
Carbondale, Illinois. Do you know SIU?
N- no, is that Central Illinois?
Southern Illinois.
Southern Illinois. Okay. Sorry, I thought you said S. I don't know why in my head I made it a C.
No, you're good.
But you're there, so this is like a state school, but you're still committed to like the creations movement. Were you like
Yeah,
involved in ministry or anything like that during that time?
I was, but I really hated the campus ministry group. They were incredibly like weirdly spiritual, charismatic kind of stuff in like a I don't know. It was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. Like mystical, borderline. I don't know if it'd be going too far to say witchcraft, but it like there were
Sure.
some really bizarre things that happened in that group. Um, but while I was there, I was still staunchly creationist. The few science classes I had to take, I took my mom's advice and did the homework the approved way, and then I would follow it up with doing it the creationist way, and I would turn in both assignments. Um, which
Really?
I look back
Oh my
on and
goodness.
just like die inside now. But
What and any of your professors or anybody said anything to you or
it was Gen Ed, and I didn't bring it up in the class
like
itself.
in class?
So
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay,
so I think
okay.
he was like, well, this kid just needs the grade. I'm gonna let him do it and graduate. Like,
Yeah, I don't know what else they can do, especially if you're not disruptive or
yeah, and it
turning
was
in things.
just
Yeah.
a Gen Ed class, but I had a friend who was going there who was a Christian, but she was in the anthropology program, and we had a lot of lively debates about evolution versus creation. And
Did she accept evolution?
mhm. And I warned her like this is going to lead you out of the faith because
Wow,
it's
wow,
not compatible with the Bible. And the irony is we're both out now, but
wow, wow,
yeah,
wow. This is interesting. So I think something that gets me is the one that just the business of it all is so deep. Like there's so much industry here, right? And even connecting it to what I saw, at my home church growing up, like just the fact that people are making all this money on like private schooling and Christian curriculum and all of this stuff. It's very in a sense I feel bad for a lot of believers because I feel like they don't realize how much predatory capitalism they're
hmm,
surrounded by, right?
yeah,
And then it is really sad to see the levels to where like your mom who has a teaching background, you know, still wants, to get her curriculum through Christian sources. And then like you take that on, like a lot of us did, like you really take it on as an important part of your identity. So then you're just all about it. Like I was all about it. It's just it just it strikes me like we were young people, we're teenagers, we're in college, and you should be in a time in life when you're just like exploring and like having fun and figuring out, but there's a lot working against you. So yeah, it just always your story is really impactful in that way. It's really heavy, man.
yeah. Well,
um
and I don't mean to say this like sound like I'm bitter, although maybe I am, but that period of like 14 to 29, I consider it just complete lost time. Like I didn't do any of
wow.
the sort of formative stuff you do when you're a teenager or in your 20s because I was so committed to the faith. And now, like, I understand that there's nothing I can do to change it other than just grow and
Right,
adapt.
right.
But it kind of lights a fire under you of like, I feel more motivated now to speak out against it and try to um, steer other people away from it. Like, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't care as much, even if I'd still gone from
Sure,
Christian to
sure.
atheist.
Yeah, and try to keep that in mind because I know we all struggle with regrets, like the things. It's tough when because we're getting a little older, right? And then you look back at your younger self and think, ah, damn, if I could do that again, I could have made better decisions or wiser choices. But you got to also remember you were young.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So you're judging a young person, whereas like we understand young people don't always make the best choices.
Yeah.
Period. Just without other factors even in play, young people just don't always make the best choices. But then also, you're up against a lot, right? You were like I always remember myself. I got to remind myself that like you were like a bro. I was raised in a cult,
Mhm.
so I'm doing okay considering, right? Like you, I do have some. I'm definitely bitter about it, but I also try to give myself some grace because like that was the whole world to
Yeah.
me back
You know,
then. Like I didn't even know there was. I didn't know not being a Christian was really possible or whatever.
mhm. You brought up like the ecosystem a while back.
Yeah, yeah,
When I was on my way out, I went through a getting in more and more fundamentalist, and on the way through that, I checked out a church in the area called the United Church of God. It's the largest offshoot of a cult from the 80s, and seeing going there, like I started to pick up immediately on some of the culty vibes, and they have such a strong ecosystem that they run their young people through a campus like alternative to college at their center, and then they'll pair up. I mean, I don't know if they like match make kids, but they want them to marry young, and then these young families will then be moved around from church to church around the country every few years, and because they're trying to just keep them reliant on the cult, like completely sucked into that ecosystem. And the people there, like the ones that I talked to and started to get to know, they had like they were just so used to it, they had no idea what was happening to them, and it felt so creepy though seeing this happen because I was starting to make a few friends, and then suddenly they were just gone. They'd been moved halfway across the country for this ministry and had no say in it. It was just, hey, we need you over here, and they're like, okay, that's what's expected of me.
So yeah, I don't. So I deconstructed fully when I was in grad school, and I played at a church. I played at a number of churches actually, even after I became an atheist. And the last church I played at before COVID um, was very much I called it like corporate Christianity, but they had a very similar thing. Like so, their business model was to go all over the country and eventually all over the world because they started some international ones where they would like um they would establish a local church, but the goal was for the local church to be established somewhere like in a college town of a major campus.
Mm-hmm.
That way they could start this campus ministry. It's called the Salt Company. It was like I think it was like a competitor to Campus Crusade or something, right? It's like a new little wrinkle on that model or whatever, because they're trying to have a local church, but the local church is like supporting the college ministry. But anyway,
Yeah.
like it's very weird because they go all over the place, having like the pastors who are going to lead these plants give like these vision casting sermons where they're going to like other college ministries or like other churches in the network, and they're like, oh hey, we're about to plant this church in whatever town, so we can target this next major university. um and then like their whole model is to like get you in this college ministry when you're like young and you're a freshman and like you've never like it's probably your first time away from home, right?
Yeah, if you can't get them
Um,
while they're in diapers, then you get them when they're in college, and like it's basically starting over, like a second birth of your identity.
yeah, exactly. And then the idea is to get you, you know, dedicated to the ministry such that now when you graduate and you don't quite yet have a family and you probably haven't established a career yet, so you're relatively unattached, now you're like on fire for Christ and you're willing to like just pick up and do a church plant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the people who were there were mostly people from Iowa, but a few people from different churches in the network who like that was their story. Like they had gotten excited by like the pastor who started our church, and then they went to like where that church was, like on a vision trip, right? You go there and you like the pastor's all telling you what you're going to do in this town, and you're praying and worshiping and all this stuff. And so yeah, they just picked up and like moved across the country to help plant this church, right? And you're hoping to get this combination of like young, you know, just out of college aged people to help you with this, and then you need some families, right? You need some older families that can buy homes and
Mm-hmm.
and like support all this
Bankroll.
bankroll this stuff. Yeah. So, you know, it's and so you kind of realize like, whoa, like because I went to like some conferences and stuff, and you realize like, oh, this is like a whole international business model.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're trying to plant these churches everywhere. So yeah, it is really like, you know, it's not just like them trying to convince you of something. It's literally them trying to like get you to dedicate your whole life to something so that you can be useful.
Yeah.
You know, and it does subvert your own autonomy in your own life, because it's getting you in a vulnerable state, and then it's filling you with that purpose. It's filling you with that I'm called by God and I want to dedicate my life to something. You know, it's like I have some students, and you know, sometimes they're religious. I think most of my students are probably religious, but I know like a lot of them, you know, it's like they want to go to medical school because they want to help people. They want to go be doctor. They want to do, you know, medical services at parts of the world where people don't have doctors and stuff. You know, and you're like hoping their motivations stay grounded and sort of pure and motivated by helping people and things like that. But you realize it's that same thing. It's that like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, young people are trying to find themselves and trying to figure out how they can contribute to the world. And this is like preying on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like with the other stuff, like being a doctor or whatever, that's something concrete that actually does something in the world for other people. Whereas like religion, just it's all fluff. It's all like there's no substance behind it. It's just, I mean, I guess it's making people feel good, but that's about the only thing. And it still contributes to this massive monetary system. Um, but underneath it all, there's no positive contributions to the world.
Yeah, that's I'm with you there. And then the other thing I was gonna say is you talked about like, you know, being a little resentful about all that time.
Mm,
Um, I feel like there's developmental stuff that's like permanent, right? Like there's a
yes.
lot of ways that I think you're supposed to learn to regulate a lot during those ages, like your formative teenage years, those early adulthood years, so between high school, college, like that whole, like those are your years where you're supposed to be figuring out like who you are, how to emotionally regulate yourself, how to have relationships with other people, how to, you know, start to get ready for adulthood, start to position yourself. You know, there's a lot that you're really supposed to work out. And I think that having that cult obsession during those formative years like bypasses a lot of that. And so I feel like now in my 30s and, you know, getting ready to turn 40 in a couple years, I feel like I'm still learning stuff I really should have figured out as a teenager. There's just basic stuff about life that I wasn't, I was raised in a cult. Like I didn't learn, I either didn't learn the right thing to do or I didn't learn how to do the right thing for the right reasons. Right. And so there's just so much now reprogramming. So yeah, I just
Yeah.
always want to mention that because I think that's another thing that we don't talk about enough is like missing out on
Well,
normal
I
development.
do gotta say, I really envy the track you were on with your degree in teaching and everything. Like, if I had not been raised a creationist, I am sure I would have gone into some kind of a science, or maybe either biology or anthropology, something like that, because that stuff has fascinated me my entire life. But I have this framework of creationism, and I don't know how much it was pressed on me like overtly or how much I just picked up through the zeitgeist, but I have this idea in my head that if I were going to college and studying science, they would try to derail my faith. And I think there was a little part of me that just knew all along that I couldn't keep believing if I looked into any of this stuff. So I avoided it with all like everything I could. And now
Yeah.
trying to make up for it in my 30s is like I'm way behind.
So you bring up something really interesting, which is the sort of cost into people intellectually, right? And I think you said it in a way that was just so honest that it's amazing because I think people really don't see it, and I see it now. I've seen it more teaching than I thought about it even in my own, you know, my own journey, which is that yeah, if you're really serious about your faith, you avoid particular aspects of education.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it can manifest different ways. There's a lot of people who just avoid going to college altogether or whatever, right? Or there's people who, you know, are afraid to go to like a state school or a public university because, you know, they want to get educated a certain way. And so, you know, you have people who they go to school, but now they're going to school to train to be a minister or whatever, rather than like a, you know, a more practical education. But really, I see it even in a lot of times when people, you know, they do go to a state school, they do get a relatively normal education, stuff like that. It's like they're gonna go into business or they go into medicine. Even when they go into
Mm-hmm.
biology, they go into biology, they go into med. I hate to say, but a lot of people go into biology to go into medicine because they're avoiding going into biology to study biology, right? They're going into
Right.
biology to like do something that's high earning, that's you know, again, more about a business or a professional ambition. And so people miss that curiosity. I remember having a conversation with my mom where she was saying something like, you know, she wishes she could have gone to school for something aligned with her intellectual pursuits, you know, more like she was saying like I did. And I remember thinking to myself, there's just no way. Like with the way her parents
Mm-hmm.
were like that, there's no way that was never going to happen. And it's something people don't talk about. But these religions are they are anti-science, and so between first off, I always tell people they're just not compatible. I know people like to say they are, and I always tell my students this. I have to be very delicate how you say this to students, but I used to say like when we say they're compatible, we're talking about a person's ability to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
We're saying you can be religious on Sunday morning and then you can be a scientist Monday through Saturday. If
Hmm.
so, an individual can do that. But science and religion are not compatible ways of seeing the world. One is expressing uncertainty, even though you have the best evidence humanly possible, and the other is expressing certainty, even when you have no evidence. So there's always going to be a way in which communities that are devoted to religious practice are just not going to encourage scientific type thinking because it's just not, it's not in their wheelhouse, and and that type of thinking is a threat to what they're really about. But then you layer on that like the suspicion of science, and then the way that particular narratives confront, don't agree with science, and then you add like the ministers being like, we're creationists and we're not going to fall for this Darwinian nonsense or whatever. So I almost feel for most people that with that type of background, it's damn near impossible.
Hmm.
For me, to be honest with you, I don't have the story that my sort of resume suggests I have. I wish I could tell the story of like, oh, I was a Christian and I was just like always interested in science, and then somehow I like, it's not really like that. It's like I stumbled into an academic path for all the wrong reasons. Like
I heard your story on another video, so like I'm here to listen to it if you want to share. But I
yeah,
remember
just so
the
most people know,
details.
just like I was never
Yeah.
really into science like growing up. I really well, I'm a drummer, it's my
Hmm.
personality type really. But I did get an academic scholarship to go to Penn State, and so I decided I was going to pursue law. Um and so I did like legal internships and stuff. And then I had a friend, and we got into this whole like, oh Lord, it was really the predecessor to like the pickup artist community online. It was terrible as because that's like pre manosphere, and so that whole world is
Yeah.
gross and disgusting too. But it
I mean,
did,
you could have become the Mark Zuckerberg,
yeah.
like
Well,
with the Facebook of
that's the
like hot
path
or not kind of
it's
thing.
the path I was headed down. And so yeah, I wanted to like be a dating coach, and we were gonna start like a magazine and a consulting company. So it's just really manosphere nonsense.
Well, if you ever want to get back in the business,
I think about now I think sometimes I think about doing like shows where I talk about like what people post on social media or on Reddit about like their experiences with online dating, just to commiserate with other singles and have a good time. So yeah, to be honest with you, I became really really serious about it,
mhm.
and actually, you know, sort of like, all right. So I went to Penn State on the scholarship, right? So my goal was to be like Hitch before Hitch,
Yes,
right? And to become like the first person who actually had a 4-year degree from a real university in social dynamics, right? Because most dating coaches are real estate agents repurposed or some shit like that, right? So I was very serious about it. But anyway, my point is just to say that like that's how I stumbled into doing research. Was like I took this class. One of my professors was like, you need to be studying. He said you need to. He's like, you need to be studying. What did he say? He said like, I think he might have said like, he said evolutionary biology or something like that. And I was like, have I ever said the word biology to you? Like I was offended. So yeah, so I just, I got lucky in the sense that then I started working in like an anthropology lab where we were studying the evolution of human sexuality, and then I did research and got recruited to, so I ended up in like a good place, but it's definitely not because I like valued science and like followed it.
mhm.
I was trying to do a really bad, weird life, make terrible life decisions, but stumbled into science. So Yeah, so I appreciate it, but yeah, I just want people to know that because we all take our own journeys, right? And I
Mhm.
don't ever want people to like see me and be like, oh, Jay must have just always been like this, and somehow he was like that biological super child who was into dinosaurs and loved to talk about DNA, and I'm like, hell no, I'm still
No.
not that way. I'm not that way now. But yeah, man. So tell me how you end up at AIG because we definitely are interested in that. And yeah, I know it's not your whole journey, but it's definitely a
Yeah.
cool little chapter.
Well, when I was going to SIU I ended up doing an econ degree. Um, the original opening date for the Arc Encounter was going to be 2014, which is when I was going to graduate. So I wanted to graduate and go straight to working there. And that ended up getting pushed back a couple of years. So they didn't open until 2016. But it just so happened that I got laid off in early 2016 and was looking for a new job. And I had a friend in Cincinnati who said, hey, come out with me for the weekend and we can look around, try to find you something out here. So I moved out to the area. I got in with a couple different jobs, including part time at the Creation Museum. And once the Arc opened that summer, that transitioned into full time working there. And I was with the company for just shy of 3 years in the IT department. And
Is this
so,
this with AIG?
yeah. I started in guest services and then ended up in working with a point of sale systems. So, kind of an IT adjacent role.
Wow. So I didn't know that. So you were out of school for a little bit before this right? So you had graduated and everything.
Yeah. I graduated in 2014 and yeah, that's right. And moved to Cincinnati 2 years later. So,
Okay, and then you
guess I
start
was.
with them part time.
Mhm.
That's interesting. So you're doing guest, and then I'm guessing so that because when you came out there, it was the Creation Museum, so they hadn't opened the Ark Encounter. So presumably, when they open the Ark Encounter, there's more opportunities. Now we need some new
Mhm.
employees. We need some people to go from part
Yeah.
time to full time, and we're gonna move some people around because we've got this whole other venture to provide personnel for.
Do you ever hear of the YouTube channel Utah Outcasts?
No, no, no.
They're not around anymore, and I think they've taken all the stuff down. But a few years
Oh wow.
ago, they did a video with one of my coworkers, Ella. The company ran her absolutely ragged to the point where she had probably 5 or 10 years of health problems after she left because in the department that I got hired into, they originally only had the manager and then 2 employees, and they were running the ticketing, food and bev, and gift shop systems for both attractions. And I think she was working like 100-hour weeks. Probably she would sleep at the Arc most nights, and just absolutely terrible to her. And I got
Wow.
hired into that department eventually in the fall because they finally realized, hey, we need more than 3 people, and so they expanded our team a little bit, and it wasn't as bad for me while I was there, but yeah,
AR
that was
asked, do they pay well? I can't imagine they paid
no,
well. I
no,
can't
hell
imagine
no.
they pay well.
Um, I was working with a guy in that department who never broke 30 grand,
Oh
and
my goodness.
he had been there for a decade or maybe a little more, and his wife was there even longer. They met there, and she had a medical condition where she had to stop working, and so he was the sole provider, making 30
Wow.
grand a year, and finally quit and left for something else. And I followed him out about a year later, and that's how I got the job I'm at now. But
Are you
um,
still in IT?
no, I work for a bank now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That sounds like a responsible person, normal,
Yes,
responsible person job.
yep. Still doesn't pay what I'd like, but it's a lot better.
Yeah, yeah. So with so when you first get there, um, I guess you felt so. Because I wanted to ask if you were like ideologically aligned with
Mhm.
them, because I remember, I don't know if you heard the story, but I'll tell people that don't know. So when we were at the protest, apparently the cops were called. I wasn't paying attention because I knew the organizers had already called the police and made arrangements or whatever. So we were good to be there. So I didn't know if somebody called them or if they were just coming to check up on the
Yeah.
event or whatever.
I got
But
there late, so I didn't see that happen.
yeah, so apparently some people called because they were mad or whatever. But one of the police officers that showed up there said that he used to work at the Ark Encounter, but that he was fired because there was a group there that apparently, you know, had some homosexual people in it, or LGBT people, I'm not sure, but apparently like the staff were being abusive to them, and he told them to stop, and he said he got called into the office, and then, you know, like he got in trouble basically for not being anti and for like not hurling slurs at these people. And so I guess apparently they asked him like, how do you feel about these people? He said, I don't really have a problem with them. And apparently he got fired for that.
I worked with a guy for 2 years in that department who was LGBT and just kept it on the down low.
Wow.
And my boss knew. He was the only person there who I think was really cool and like willing to work with people and didn't really care if you were
wasn't going to out them.
Yeah. But once other people in the company found out, they fired the kid.
Really? So this is not so that is something you've at least experienced to know that like if they knew or if they found out that you were, they would get rid of you. So that they are strict about that.
Yeah. My last pillar to fall when I was leaving Christianity was creationism, and that was after I left the company. But while I was there were a lot of other doctrines that I was mulling through, and like I said earlier, I became more and more fundamentalist. I was getting kind of into a sort of Messianic Judaism thing, and like I lost my belief in the Trinity, I lost my belief in eternal conscious torment, hell, and as these things were falling,
were you just seeing these things as like not biblical?
Yeah. I was trying to reorient my thinking to be as close to a first century follower of Jesus as I could. Very Jewish in my outlook, for the like as much as I could replicate. As a Gentile, but anyway, I became so doctrinally opposed to AIG that like I knew if they found out they would fire me. And my manager said, "Hey, like I know you're studying these things. I hope you'll come back to the same perspective that I have, but just don't mention it to anybody because most of the people here will get rid of you."
Wow. Oh, so he was like telling you like,
yeah,
you're all right with me, but I wouldn't. I would make sure I don't say this to anybody else. Wow.
Yeah, there's a reason he's the only one I'm still friends with.
So, okay, so yeah, just describe, I guess, your process there a little bit, because when you come in, you're sort of more ideologically aligned with them. Like, were you like have your I guess politics changed a lot throughout that process too? Like, were you super conservative at the time? And
what happened, I met somebody who worked there who was part of this group called the Hebrew Roots Movement. It's not exactly a cult, but it is it's a very small group that has some cultish tendencies, but their main focus is like strip away all church dogma that's been piled up since the 2nd century and like try to go back to as authentic as you can get of what a first century follower would have been like. And I loved it. I really felt like that was the first time I felt God in my life. I was rebaptized in a river.
Wow.
I was using all the sacred names like Yeshua, Jehovah, kind of stuff for God. Keeping all the biblical holy days and Sabbath, wearing these ridiculous little blue and white tassels on my belt loops. um, for a few years. Just I was in 100%, and I part of that was also because I couldn't find a church in the area that I really felt drawn to, and that allowed me to start studying these things on my own because I didn't have a pastor telling me what to study anymore. Um, and I was becoming more strict for myself, but this was the third big theological change that happened in my life because with my parents, they were pretty loosely non-denominational, kind of Armenian in their theology. And then I went to a fundamentalist Calvinist church through high school and college.
That was
And
where
then
you went with your friends.
yeah. And in college too, I found similar churches. And then when I moved to AIG, I got into the Hebrew roots. And I'm at this point, I'm thinking, I've changed my perspective so many times. I know that each time I do it, I feel more sure that I can defend it from the Bible than I did before. And I can point out why what I thought before was wrong. But I never thought I was wrong before. So that means that other people who don't agree with me, they could still think they're right. And either God is like going to allow 99% of Christians to go to hell, or maybe I just because I feel like I'm concrete in the answers and grounded, there could be more room for faith, more room for disagreement. And so I was becoming more open-minded toward other people. I wasn't in any way progressive at that point, but I was less concerned about what other people did and more willing to like give grace to other people.
This is kind of crazy because it sounds like because for us it's like you go AIG, we're like YC, almost it almost has that like Christian nationalist, fundamentalist Americana thing going on. But you get to AIG and you kind of get into this weird stuff that's like esoteric stuff that right. I don't really associate that stuff with AIG, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, I didn't either. It was definitely my own path.
and you said you met somebody there that was on that. Were they like a guest or were they somebody else that worked there?
No, she worked there. She'd moved there for work as well, and then the rest of her family moved out there too. And I got really close with her and her husband, and they introduced me to their, I guess, denomination of sorts. Hebrew Roots Movement is what it's called.
Sure.
And I was in that for almost 3 years. Really, I mean, I would go to conferences. I have one of those big Jewish shofar things, the big antelope horn.
Yeah, I think that would have appealed to me because I think I was I went through a phase like that too where I was trying to like reclaim some kind of relationship to the human Jesus and like realizing that it wasn't going to be the sort of American Christian experience that I came up with. So I think I just didn't meet anybody like that during that time.
Probably
but
for the best.
You're probably for the best, yeah, because I might have gotten down with that for sure.
I could see you with a massive beard and
oh yeah,
and
yeah.
the little tassels on your belt loops. That was the defining feature. Tried to explain that to my grandpa, he was Lutheran, but like very down to earth, no nonsense kind of guy. Just could not explain it to him. He thought I was so stupid.
So were this couple, were they also kind of under wraps then at AIG, like because they also okay, and
they had been going to a Christian church just to give their kids the whole community Sunday school experience, and one of the elders was also in her chain of command at work, and they got in trouble with the elders of the church, and that ended up being so potentially impactful for a job that she quit.
Wow. That's deep. There's a lot going on. So you also mentioned, so did you start going to that church with them? Because you had mentioned struggling to find like a church to attend. And again, that's just like doesn't fit my stereotype for AIG. To be like
Yeah.
they're really encouraging everybody that goes there has to be going to a church, and if you haven't already found a church home, everybody there is trying to drag you to theirs. So what was that really like?
Well, I joined a church in the area and went through the whole membership class, but they were in the middle of hiring a new pastor, and my official first day as a member was the first day the pastor was hired on, and I hated the guy they picked, so I never went back.
Got you.
And after that, I went around for a few months trying to find a new place, and I just was feeling pretty despondent. Then I met my friend, and she introduced me to this way of thinking. And by early 2017, I was fully convinced and going to their Sabbath assembly and different conferences and stuff. And off and on, like a lot of it was studying at home because I didn't always see eye to eye with that group either. But there was a lot of home study, a lot of going. There were a few different assemblies in the area that I would join. And I don't know. It was more like mostly independent, I think, like just kind of self-driven curiosity of like wanting to be as authentic as I could, wishing I could do it with other people, but not really finding a community that I totally gelled with.
Real quick, misinterpretation said that there's a article on Answers in Genesis about the dangers of the Hebrew roots movement.
That pissed me off so bad when they wrote.
Oh, really? I was gonna say, was that before your time?
Yeah,
or no?
That was one of the things too that my friend almost got. I mean, she didn't get fired for that reason, but the guy who wrote that was like 2 spots above her in the chain of command, and she was really worried about her job because she was pretty open about like what she believed, and he was very adamantly against it. I wrote an anonymous rebuttal to it on my personal blog, which I don't have anymore, but I can find it on archive.org. But I went through that thing line by line and tore it to shreds.
So you were mad too. You were like, I'm not gonna stand for this slander.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, this is deep. What did you feel like about the culture there? Like, did you feel there was a lot of this type of unspoken diversity is not the right word, but I'm gonna go with diversity in the sense of, people actually have a wider spectrum of thought and beliefs here than we sort of lead on to? Or did you feel like it really was more of a monoculture where everybody's like on the same page, but then there's just like sort of a few of us odd apples over here?
I worked at the Ark more than the Creation Museum, and so I can mostly speak for art culture.
Yeah, I should be talking about the Ark. Sorry. Yeah.
The museum was a lot more homogenous, especially, I mean, I don't know about now that they have the Toyota building, but they were, their offices were in the back of the museum, and everybody there was pretty much on the same page, as far as I knew. Gotcha. At the Ark, there was a lot more diversity of thought. I knew people who were fired up for God, who at the same time did not believe in creationism, but just didn't care because they still wanted to be part of the ministry. I knew people who weren't Christians, or at least they might go to church, but like they didn't really believe it, but it was a paycheck and they knew the right things to fill out on their application.
Wow.
Like I said, I knew the guy who was in the LGBT community. I knew a guy.
Yeah. What did you ever talk to them about working there? What did they say?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we work toger a lot, but
you don't really get into. It's not like a lunch conversation at work one day. Yeah,
I knew he was queer way before he ever told me, but we didn't talk about that till after we both quit or we're both out of there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him too much.
Sure. No, you may not know. I was just curious. Yeah. It's just interesting. So where do the cracks start? You know, and
Yeah.
you said you ended up at your first protest even while you were still an employee there.
Well, in 2018, I was curious about the protest. I had the day off, and I really wanted to just see like what are they saying about us? Why would anyone want to protest this? So I went undercover, just sat there. I didn't talk to anybody really, and I Arlen Raw was actually there, and I so regret not meeting him, but I was terrified of him when I saw him. Um, and anyway, so I was there, and like um, I don't know, I don't remember it too well, to be honest. The first one, but the next time I was there, I was completely out, atheist, and ended up getting into some pretty good conversations with some of the AIG employees who came there as um, apologists.
I guess I'm wondering, like, the first time you go, where are you at? Maybe you don't remember the event, but where do you feel like you were at in your journey? Like, were you there just to see it? Were you
Mhm.
there still as a creationist, or were you questioning at that point? Or
Yeah, I was a creationist.
so you were still like,
Yeah,
you were still on board. You were just, let me go see what they're up to, what they're saying about us, type of deal.
I'll be honest. I filled up the back seat of my car with a bunch of bottles of water, thinking that I was going to go bring water to these atheist protesters and try to
Oh,
win
love of
them over.
Jesus.
Yes,
You were gonna give
exactly.
us the love of Jesus with the water bottles.
Then I
Hey.
got there and they had pizza, water, and everything. I don't know why I just assumed that like atheists would be so thoughtless to
My
come
plan
there
has
with
been
that.
foiled.
Yeah, but
That's hilarious.
anyway, the thing that ultimately like convinced me out of creationism was after I left the company, I turned my attention to Genesis because I just had this feeling that like there's no way that Abraham or Moses or any of these patriarchs who received God's word would have come away with understanding that Earth is a planet orbiting the sun. Like when they read the Genesis story, there's no way they would have thought what AIG teaches about the universe. Um, as distorted as their teachings are, like it still is influenced heavily by modern cosmology. And
Wait, hang on a second. Let me just get it, because oh man, you throwing so many things at my brain. I never thought about AIG's cosmology, right? So the Earth is a globe. They're good with that, and
yeah,
we're
yeah.
orbiting around the sun. Like, that's
Oh,
fine.
they hate the association with flat earthers.
Okay, they
And
do.
when they published that article, they got some heavy criticism from other people in Hebrew roots because a lot of Hebrew roots people are flat earthers because
Really?
they take the Bible so incredibly literally,
Yes, that it
and
is a flat Earth cosmology.
they
Okay.
applied the same logic of the young earth creationism to everything else, and they were just like livid. And I know they got like hundreds and hundreds of emails of people complaining about that.
Wow. All right. So AIG is definitely globe, and then, but it's just interesting to me because you're right. So, and they're heliocentric, right? The sun, the sun
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
center of the solar system or whatever. Um, so it is interesting how they accept. So Stephen Jay Gould would talk about these different scientific revolutions in one of his YouTube talks, and he talks about the Darwinian revolution being so much more difficult than like the Copernican revolution, because of the fact that, like, one's about real estate, right? So, like, is the Earth the center of the solar system, or is the sun the center of the solar system? It's like we didn't like the idea that it's actually the sun, but you could like get over it. Evolution is like a totally different thing, right? It says something about us that, at least from a religious perspective, people find much more difficult to accept, because it's about our origins. So it's just interesting. So okay, so they're, how do you think they do that dance in their head? Do you have any idea how they say we'll take this part from science but not this other thing?
I don't honestly know at this point. I think I could have explained it maybe when I was part of it, but now I can't explain it honestly like from their perspective because it doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
I made those same excuses back then, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where I can post a link to that rebuttal article.
Oh, if you have a link, you can put it to me here in our private chat, and I can drop it in the stream chat.
Okay.
Also, I've got a $2 super chat from Robin Webster. Thank you so much. And Robin says, "I was 50. So much stolen time. Thanks, Seth. Love you, Jay." That's from our conversation earlier. We were talking about the time we lost. Yeah, Robin. I think you know, I think that's something just so painful for all of us to deal with, but it's like we have each other, and I think you said it so well that like we wouldn't be as motivated in our current iteration if it wasn't for those things we experienced. So
Hmm.
I try to remember that those things are an important part of the people we've become, even if yeah, it's tough. But thank you so much for the super chat, Robin. Always appreciate it. And yeah, I'm gonna drop these links here in the chat and also pull them up so I can check them out. So yeah, so how do you start to so yeah, what I guess I want to know two things. What led to your deconstruction and also what led to you leaving. So however you want to, weave
Yeah.
that narrative, what's best for you.
So, middle of 2017, or no, middle of 2019, I was really trying to study through what the Hebrews would have understood about Genesis, because I'd come to the conclusion at that point that like there's no way you can read this and naturally come to a heliocentric solar system model, much less like their explanations for how you see starlight, um, with time asynchronization or white hole cosmology, these different ideas that are interesting but just totally batty and out there, of like how you see starlight from so far away by the time Adam is created on day 6. um, and so I was trying to get in the head of people like Moses, Abraham, David, all these Old Testament characters way before uh, any kind of science existed. And I learned more about like the Leviathan mythology, and how the biblical or the Genesis creation accounts were adapted from other cultures, like the Canaanites and stuff. And that initially didn't run me out. I was actually more intrigued. I was trying to piece it together of like, well, maybe God revealed part of this to the Canaanites first, and then they fell into sin, and that's why he turned to the Israelites, and then they preserved the truer version. And like just trying to put it all together in a way that still maintained my faith. And that October, I think, I went to a Feast of Tabernacles event, for the Jewish holiday Sukkot up in Michigan. And the year prior, I'd been to one, and I had just felt like so spiritually alive and connected to God for the biggest time in my life. And this one that I went to in 2019 was just completely different. I felt so isolated and like I wasn't supposed to be there. It was a weird experience, and I really hated it. And I remember driving home, and I was listening to some podcast or study about Leviathan. Might have been on Ben Stanhope's channel or something. But I remember realizing like this is all based in the flat Earth kind of perspective. And I did not grow up hearing flat Earth stuff. I did not believe it at all. But it just clicked on that drive home that if I was going to keep believing this, that's the direction I'd have to go. Like I'd have to convince myself that the earth was flat, because everything else in the Bible points to that perspective. And the Leviathan mythology that's pervasive from Genesis to Revelation The way the creation story is laid out, the flood story is another version of the Leviathan myth. And since this is in the Bible, I've got to believe it. And if I don't believe it, then I can't believe anything, because I can't just like reshape 30 years of thinking and start taking certain things as figurative. And so that fall and winter, I really wrestled with like, where is my faith? I tried to rebuild some kind of theistic evolution that fell apart quickly. Tried to convince myself, well, maybe the earth is flat. Maybe they were onto something. Couldn't do that. And I'm really glad for it. By, I guess, around February-ish or March maybe of 2020, I was finally at the point of like, I don't think I have any faith. I think I have, I've got to be honest with myself. I think I'm an atheist. And I
Wait, were you still there?
What
Were
do
you
you
still
mean?
working there?
Oh, no. I'd quit middle of February 2019.
Why did you quit?
Over the theology stuff, like the Trinity, the doctrine of hell. They started making people sign their statement of faith every year. And I was reading through it and I'm like, I can get on board with like half of this, but the other half I can't. And I don't
Was it
feel
before
like I can sign it.
you just had to sign it when you first started?
Yeah, and I did agree with them when I signed it the first time, but 3 years later, I was so on a different track theologically that like I felt like I'd be lying to myself and God if I signed it again. So I took a leap of faith and said, I can't do this. Please give me a week and I'll try to find a new job, and ended up getting hired on with the bank.
Oh, wow. This was a real like conscious moment for you. This was like it's that time of year. They put the thing in front of you, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can sign on to this anymore. Okay, but for you, that's not I'm leaving the faith or anything like that. That is, I'm just on this other path of what I'm learning in as a Christian, and you can't. AIG in a sense not hardcore enough for you.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
They've kind of
I
gone
still
soft into this American thing. You know, I can't
Mhm.
get with that anymore.
I believed their stance on creationism, but I thought they were compromising on so much other stuff.
Wow. All right. So you left, and then you deconvert sort of
Hmm.
more completely later. Yeah, what was that like personally, like in terms of your friend group or
Yeah.
relationship to your family? Like, did you tell anybody or?
Well, I'll tell you this story first. I ended up not really celebrating. It more felt like a final meal kind of thing. But like I remember, I decided to go out and break my shrimp and pork fast. I'd been eating kosher for 3 years. Decided to finally like declare that I was out of the Hebrew roots entirely. And while I was eating my pulled pork and shrimp burrito, which I still can taste it to this day, it was amazing. Um, there was something on the TV in the restaurant about this new sickness that had been discovered in America. And my first thought was, God is judging me. Like this must be the plague from God for me leaving the faith. And it ended up being a good thing for me personally, because seeing the response from Christians during COVID was like really solidified the fact that
Mhm.
I just couldn't be part of that anymore. It probably took me about a year or two to deconstruct my political and social views. Um, so that was a whole nother process.
Because you said, do you think that was after the COVID thing that happened?
Well, COVID was like they had just first discovered a case earlier in March, or maybe a few cases. They were starting to pick up on it March 2020 in the U.S. And I remember I was in this Mexican restaurant eating my unkosher food, um, And on the TV they were talking about this new disease that was coming, and they were like this pandemic that could happen. And my first thought was like, God's judging me for leaving the faith.
Wow. Wow.
But as far as my family goes, I think I kept it under wraps for a couple of years, and I think my mom picked up on it by about the first maybe year and a half. Mostly because I was the kind of person who would like write a 3-page sermon and post it on Facebook every few days, and I stopped doing that. And so she picked up on that, and then she came out to visit for a weekend in the summer, and we went to the Creation Museum. And
is this the summer of 2020?
I think 2021.
Okay.
Maybe?
Okay. So we're traveling again. And all
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff. Okay. Okay.
And I remember like we were in, I believe, the exhibit with their fake Lucy that looks like a chimpanzee, if you know what I'm talking about.
I think maybe I've seen pictures of it, but they have they have like an inaccurate Lucy there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically a quadrupedal, like almost chimpanzee that they call Lucy.
Goodness.
And I believe we were in that room, and she had the courage to ask me, like, do you still believe this? And I like, I'm not someone who likes to dance, but I was like doing pirouettes around my mom trying to figure out how to explain I'm not a creationist without telling her I'm an atheist.
Right.
It was such a painful conversation. I told my siblings not too long after that. I've got a large family, and all of them were okay with it. Found out a couple of them were less believers than they let on as well.
Sure.
But for the most part, the family is still pretty devout. And then I ended up telling my dad, I think in 2022, because he and I can talk about religion a lot better than we can politics. And so I talked to him about religion, and my mom, we stayed clear of the subject until last summer. She came out to visit again, and I was supposed to have a medical procedure that ended up canceling. So we had a lot of time to just sit around and talk. And I think we had a 4 or 5 hour conversation about faith and reasons to believe, reasons not to believe, like, where do I stand? How do we move forward? And it was a very healing conversation. We've had a couple of follow-ups since then, but she tries very hard to meet me where I am, and I try as much as I can not to let my feelings about religion through. Other than on Facebook, I'm pretty open on there, but like, I figure that's my head, and if you want to see it, you're welcome to.
Sure. Yeah. I think my mom probably would. I can't imagine my mom watching my YouTube channel. I think. Yeah.
Does
I think
she know
they know
about
to
pickup
avoid.
artist stuff?
About what?
The pickup artist
Oh,
stuff?
yeah. She's
Okay.
yeah. Those conversations I never had a hard time having. Yeah. But yeah, I remember a similar thing to where my mom asked me about the Creation Museum when I was in grad school. I talked about that during my speech. But yeah, it was very tough trying to explain to her that there was not a museum and that creationism is not true. It's I think a lot of us still struggle with that because we have these super religious families that we come from, and we just don't even know how to even broach the topic with them mostly, I think.
Well, I made what I think is a genius decision, although it might be a little bit manipulative. But a few years ago, after I'd left Christianity, I was back at my parents' house, and I asked my grandma if I could borrow her phone. And I just went onto her phone and unfollowed my account. So we're still friends on Facebook, but she doesn't know how to look up people's accounts.
Sure.
So she has no idea that she doesn't see me. And she's the only person I really don't want to know.
I get
or
it.
that I don't want her to find out.
Yeah, yeah. I think most of my family, I think, knows by now. Maybe I think I don't know. I think my mom told me. I guess she told my grandparents at some point.
Mm.
I don't know how that conversation went. Let me see. So look, chat. If y'all, we got a few minutes left. If y'all want to, y'all want me to ask anything in particular, I'd be happy to. So I'll try to keep an eye on the chat just for like the next few minutes in case there's anything. Um, yeah. Hey, Dave. Good to see you. Yeah, Dave said the best part of the protest was meeting Jay and Seth and the rest of the folks in person. Yeah, it was awesome, Dave. Good to see you, man. Um,
And
yeah.
Jay, before we go, I do
Sure.
have one
Sure.
question I wanted to ask you, and
Yeah.
we can get
Anything.
to it after the chat and everything. This is more of a political question in the vein of what you and Michael Beverly were talking about, which I
Sure.
think is how I first heard about your channel.
Oh, awesome! Shout out to Michael. I know
Yeah.
Michael just ended his YouTube channel, or he's taking a hiatus. But
Oh, did he
we
really?
love some Michael Beverly.
I guess I haven't
Yeah,
seen him in a couple weeks.
yeah. He's got a post on his community tab you can read.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it out. Um, I grew up. Well, I should preface by saying my family has adopted several kids from Haiti, so we have a mixed racial blended family. Um, and my parents have never, in any way, shape, or form, judged anyone based on ethnicity, race, that kind of thing. But there have been elements besides the whole racist history and attitudes of Republicans today, and just other things that I picked up on that are like more judgmental of culture than they are of the people who live out the culture.
Sure.
And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the whole conservative Christian, especially white conservative Christian, topic or way of describing themselves as being colorblind?
Oh yeah, that's definitely not something I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it's one. I don't. Nobody buys that.
Mm-hmm.
We so one most of the time it's something even a lot of conservative white people they only say to a person of color.
Yeah.
Like they don't have conversations with other white people, be like, yo man, I'm colorblind, like I don't even see color. So if you're only saying that to people of color, then you have to see our color for it to trigger your I don't see color response. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. The other thing is that it's really not helpful in the sense of people are trying, even sometimes, like people on the left, a lot of times, because they've learned, race is a social construct, which is, the sociological perspective on it. So, there's a lot of way people like will use that to say, well, like race isn't even a real thing. It's just a social construct. And it's nice that people want to not be racist,
Yeah.
so I commend people in their, of course, desire to not be racist, but we just have to be realistic about the lived reality of marginalized people.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who's racialized, even in the slightest, even just, being mixed or whatever, and like having different features or anything like that, it dominates every single aspect of your lived experience, every single interaction you have. Like you can never move in the world and separate how people treat you, how people treat me as a person, from how people treat me as a black man. I can't even that's like not conceptually even possible for me. It's like saying two,
Yeah.
like what is two plus infinity? Like I don't doesn't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's tough. The bigger thing to me where I'm at with it is the moral failing of the association. What I mean by that is when I look back at my own Christianity, there was a way in which I knew I knew that our beliefs about LGBTQ people was responsible for so much of the suffering and the discrimination.
Hmm.
And when I look back at it, it's like, no, like that's the core of it.
Yeah.
And it was a moral failing on my part to not leave based simply on the bigotry. To say like
Yeah.
this is awful. I shouldn't be a part of this group. I think racially we're in a similar boat where Christianity has been the core of so much racism, so much slavery, so much genocide, cultural erasure, you name it, just the list of monstrosities just keeps going on. That for people to sort of be able to maintain that identity for themselves but completely overlook the role it's played in racial problems, and it's particularly right now. Like right now it's like I don't care. 2025 hits differently than 2005 and hits
Hmm.
differently than 95, and it certainly hits different than 85. But in 2025, we are dealing with a real-time white supremacist, Christo-fascist
Yeah.
movement that has done more than just undermine American democracy. It's literally undermined the peace and stability of the entire world order.
Yeah.
And when you look at MAG, I keep telling them, this is a thing that is a uniquely Christian thing, especially white Christians. Most white Christians in this country voted for Trump, and most of Trump's base is white Christians.
Hmm.
So they did this to us.
Yeah.
They're the reason we're in this movement, this moment. And so I'm fighting against it very differently today than I would have 5 or 10 years ago. And I do judge Christians more harshly today because we just don't have time. We just
Yeah.
don't have time anymore to be playing with this mess. There's too much going on.
Hmm.
And what are y'all thinking about y'all religion when it does this? Like right now, the GOP has become the guardians of pedophiles. What are we talking about? Y'all are all Christian and y'all watching what this man is doing. Y'all know what the story is. Y'all know what his affiliations are. Y'all know the same information that we have. What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
There's a genocide happening right now. People say it's not that Gazans are starving. It's Gazans are being starved by Israel.
Hmm.
Okay. But they're doing so on our dime.
Yeah.
And with us being the people who are most capable to go in and stop it, and we're not doing so. So I'm like out of tolerance for Christianity, if that makes
Oh,
any sense.
no, I understand completely.
Yeah,
I
yes,
ask you that though because like when I don't try to talk politics with my parents too often because my dad just will not have it. My mom, we can talk about politics more, me and my mom, but like she just because of the whole adopting kids from Haiti and her way of like, well, I don't judge anyone by race, by skin color. Like it is personally hurtful and offensive to her when I point out how like your conservative values are like kind of betray your own personal values because you have like conservatives have this history and like these are things they're doing that hurt people, but she just can't get past the like I'm not racist because I mean I don't think she says colorblind, but that's what she means. And like
sure, yeah. I guess the question for somebody like that, because that is, it's tough. It's it's a much more serious version of I have a black boyfriend or a black friend or whatever.
I have a black child.
I have a
3 of
black
them.
child, yeah. So one, I would ask, who does that attitude benefit? Like, let's say you are colorblind, or let's say you can't be racist. Like, who is served by that? Like, in other words, is your comfort, because it seems like a lot of people, their discomfort is more about the idea that, like you said, like they could be racist or they could be associated with racism. So a lot of times they're trying to keep themselves comfortable. And then you can ask, like, who is that really helping? Okay, so you can't be racist. You're colorblind. You don't see color. Okay, like, okay, so you're more comfortable with that. I get that, but like, does that help black people? Like, does that help? Is that what? Because ICE right now is doing mass deportations, and from what we can see, they seem to not be colorblind. It seems like the people who are deported are darker skinned than the people who are not deported. So how does being colorblind help those people, right? And then maybe there is even a tie-in to the adopted children. Like, why did you adopt Haitian children? Because a lot of people, it's going to be, well, I had certain privilege or resources and I wanted to make a difference and help somebody less fortunate or help somebody who wasn't born in a situation with those opportunities. Well, and then probe, like, well, why? Right? Because you want to get them to realize, like, even you adopting Haitian children is probably because you recognize they are born into much different circumstances just by nature of being Haitian.
Yeah.
And why is that? You know what I mean? So it's what you hopefully want to do is tie it to their lived experience of actually wanting to help and show that, like, maybe it's not about you. And if you step a little bit beyond your comfort, like, you letting go of that is actually far more helpful, right? Like, you're way less, it's way easier to not be racist if you're not colorblind. That's the kind of where I want to get people, right? You want to really be anti-racist, awesome. But now we need you to, like, see race so then we can actually attack racism. Seeing color is not going to help us fight racism.
It seems to me that when people say they're colorblind, what they mean is, I treat everyone as if they are white. And if they deviate from that, then I'm not judging them because they're a different color. I'm judging them because they're deviating from my culture, which happens to be whiteness.
Yeah, and that's the thing about that that's more even pernicious than what I've been talking about, which is a lot of the people who sort of put that language out there in the mainstream, they did so for very racist reasons, which was exactly that. Was, you got to remember, like, the question is, how do we get people to exist in the times we live in? What I mean by that is, how do we get people to be able to live in a society where there's so much racism happening, there's so many racist policies, there's so much discrimination, there's so much happening? Well, it's probably not going to be with some all-out 1700s racist language, because that would shock people and they would be repelled by that. So instead, we've had to get people really comfortable with treating people differently. And so one of the ways we've done that is we said, no, you're not racist. What you're doing is you're noticing, it's like the Robert Price line, if Black Lives Matter so much, why don't their fathers want to be a part of it? If you say that, if you can make it about, oh, there's a problem in Black cultures, or look what they're doing in Black communities and all this other stuff, now all of a sudden, like you said, you don't feel racist. You're just, why aren't these people more civilized? Or why don't they talk like I do? Why don't they dress better if they want better jobs? Like that type of stuff, right?
Honestly, like, I heard little bits and pieces of that growing up, but it was never about, like, Black people. It was about the culture and these people just living in it. And, like, I realized that this is one of the things I had to deconstruct after I had left Christianity, of, like, have I been thinking about this from, like, my own ethnocentric perspective my whole life. Yes, I have, and like just trying to learn and like listen to different voices and stuff has been a big journey in and of itself too.
Yeah, even to me, the very nature of the peaceful rules of engagement are steeped in white supremacy because you have people who got a dominant position in the world order through barbaric means, colonization, slavery, imperialism, the whole nine. Um, but now once they're on top, everything is supposed to be, well, we do this through Robert's Rules of Order, and there's a procedure for this, and we go through the proper channels, and we don't take to the streets, and we don't burn things down, we don't destroy property. When you're marginalized, you realize that has always been about maintaining the status quo. That has always been about, so we can protest, but we have to protest in a way that keeps the powerful people comfortable.
Yeah,
and what happens?
Permits from the slave
exactly,
and then
the
police.
And then what happens when you do that? Well, I'm comfortable, so now I can just ignore you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to protest me outside my door, so I can ignore that. Okay, cool. You got your little permit to be over there in the park. That's fine. So even it's a huge thing to get people to think about. Well, hey, like, who does it serve to say that things should be handled according to a certain procedure or a certain culture? Who made those rules, and who do those rules serve? And so, yeah, I think a lot of people get swept up into that because they understand that people are upset and that certain groups are having a hard time, but why do they have to be so in our face about it? Or why do they do this? Or why are they disrupting
would just act
this?
like us, then we would let them in.
Yeah. Which is, of course, also not true. So another thing that's so interesting is you could go to like a black community on a Sunday morning and go to like a popular black church, and one of the things that's really disgusting to me as a black person is that it's all proximity to whiteness. To black people, what their Sunday best means is shirt and tie and suit and nice cars and all of this type of thing. So it's funny to do that and think, well, then why aren't y'all at the same church? If black people would put on a shirt and tie and drive a certain car and be willing to eat omelets with us at the diner after church, why are there still black and white churches, right? So there's clearly something else going on. Yeah.
It just reminded me of a story. When I was in high school at that fundamentalist church, there were a few black families who went to the church. Like, it wasn't completely homogenous.
Sure.
But a few years later, when I was working at the Ark, my pastor brought a group of seniors to the Ark, and I was working, but then my boss said, "Hey, you can give them a tour. That's fine." So I was going through the Ark with them. And on the third deck of the Ark, you get up to the living quarters, and you have Noah and his sons, and then the wives are all meant to represent different ethnicities, because the idea is like you've got to have ethnic groups come from somewhere. The genetic diversity, there's no way it could come about in 4,000 years. So let's say it comes about in 6,000 years, and that it was brought through the flood, through the wives that are never mentioned in the Bible. So, like Shem's wife is, I think, Middle Eastern. Japheth's wife is European, and then Ham's wife is African. And when we got to the exhibit with Ham's wife, who looks black, my pastor, who I'd never heard him say anything racist before, he like shouts almost. You could hear it across the deck. He goes, "There were no black people on the Ark." And I was just mortified.
Wow.
I could not believe it. And I mean, that really shattered my perception of him and that church. I was like, I've never heard anything like this before, but this is like an expression of true belief from this man.
Yeah. And that's one thing that strikes me too, is the depiction, like the way in which Christianity literally whitewashed God. They literally
Mhm.
made Jesus a white man. They made God into a white man. Even the depictions, when they show you depictions of hell and stuff, heaven and stuff like that, it's all like all white angels. So you can go to like a contemporary white church right now, and I'll be sitting there like looking at the black people, and it's like white Jesus, white God, all white angels, all white people in heaven, and it's just, and nobody will say anything. Like
Yeah.
it's complete craziness. Yeah. Also, I was gonna say that that is one display I've seen from the Creation Museum. Like I've seen online a lot, and it's horrible. All right, couple
Yeah.
quick things from the chat. So Captain Death said, "Ask Seth about the leaking pond." I have no idea what that's about.
So the ark was built on there were two hills that they kind of leveled out the tops of, and then they filled in the middle with the dirt from leveling it off, and they built the ark on one of the level hills, and then in the center of the two hills that they'd filled in, they had a pond that was artificially built. And this pond, I mean, it's really huge, and it's like the focal point. You walk up, you get off the bus, and like the first thing you see is the pond, and then the ark behind it. In that picture you had in the YouTube video
Yeah,
before we
yeah, I saw.
started.
That's the thing. That's the
Yep,
pond. Okay,
yep, that
yeah.
pond. Well, I don't know how long it was after, but I think it was the first, maybe 2017. They realized that there was a leak in the pond, and it they didn't know where it was, but like water was going out, and for months they were just pumping in gallons and gallons of water every single morning. And then
Oh, wow.
eventually they let it drain out because they had to find the leak and repair it. But I'm sure it was costing a fortune to do that. But anyway, one day I was going up on the bus, going into the office, and I see the people working out there trying to find the hole with dowsing rods, just dowsing for water, like the little fork thing that like magically points downward whenever you find water.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's like a pseudoscience thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I was like, how the hell are they having dowsing rods at the ark, like where the public can see this completely bogus thing that I was just, it was so
Wow.
like I was humiliated for the ark seeing it, and I don't know if anybody else noticed or cared or anything, but I'm like how are you this pseudoscientific using dowsing rods to find the leak in your pond?
And they're paying people out there to do that.
Yeah.
That's
I
yeah,
guess
that's
they did
cringe.
eventually find it though because it doesn't leak anymore, but
Probably wasn't the dowsing rods that did
probably not.
it.
Probably not.
All right, misinterpretations. We talked a little about this, but said I'd love to know a little bit more about what all gave him the most doubts. Um, so maybe I guess when you finally deconverted, because he had three different major shifts. But I guess
Mhm.
if you want to recap quickly what
I
when
would
you left.
say consistently through my whole life, the thing I struggled with the most was the Trinity. Trinity. I remember being like 4 or 5 years old, sitting on the side of my bed with my mom. She was tucking me in, asking how God can be Jesus and God at the same time. And it didn't make sense. And her explanation didn't make sense. And then, and I think, had I not decided to trust my parents because I didn't know any other way as a kid, I probably could have deconverted when I was like 5 or 6. But then when I got older and in high school, I was asking my pastor, like, help me understand the Trinity. And then I studied it for like months on my own and came up with a variety of different analogies and ways of understanding it. And there was one time I even brought one of these explanations to my pastor, and I'm like, can I run this by you and see if it makes sense? And after I explained it to him, he was like, congratulations, you just discovered a new heresy. And then
Wow.
um, the winter of 2016, I was working at the Creation Museum, but also doing a DoorDash on the side. And I got to know this homeless guy who would hang out outside of a restaurant that was really popular. And one night I thought, you know what? I'll hang out with him for a few hours, share the gospel with him, maybe buy him some groceries, give him a ride somewhere. I mean, we were just talking, shooting the shit. And then I picked him up some food. And as I was trying to explain the gospel to him, captive audience and all that,
Sure.
um, I was so worried about the whole idea of heresies because I had struggled so much to understand the Trinity, and I knew what the language was behind it, how to describe it, but it didn't really make sense to me. And I was so worried that like if I explained it to him wrong, he could become a Christian, believe the wrong version of Christianity, and go to hell, and then I'd be responsible for that. So as I'm explaining the Trinity to him, which is like way up here compared to like your message of salvation down here, um, I'm hearing the words come out of my mouth, and I'm like, if someone were telling this to me, I would not believe it. I would think they were
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
And that was around the same time, a few months before I really got into the Hebrew roots movement. And once I got in there, I started to realize there's a lot more diversity in the umbrella of Christianity. And there are actually some people who are like binitarian or Unitarian, and they still are following God, following the Bible. They still follow the teachings of Rabbi Yeshua. And so I can do that. I don't have to try to make the Trinity like work in my head, and I can still have my faith and be stronger for it because I no longer have this thing that's like impossible for me to understand. And that was like the first pillar to fall, I think. And then after that was like hell, and then legalism and the Torah, and like saved by grace versus works. I spent a lot of time on that one.
Oh,
And
that's
then
interesting.
finally creationism
And
at
so
the
that was
very
kind of,
end.
so creation was kind of at the end, the last straw.
Yeah.
And then like a lot of us, I think you became I don't want to say weird, but like a esoteric Christian
Well,
rather than straight to atheist. Because that's me. Like I hung on to theistic evolution for a long time. I became a
mhm.
very non-traditional Christian. I didn't believe in hell and heaven anymore. I didn't, I wasn't even sure if Jesus was real anymore, but I still was a Christian, right?
Yeah.
So, it's like you're figuring out all this stuff that you don't believe, but you're not taking it to, I don't believe in God anymore. I'm just not the same type of Christian as the
Yeah.
people who raised me or the people around me.
I had radically reinterpreted Paul. Like my idea was like, if you're building a house, you start with the foundation, then you build the first floor, second floor, then the roof. So the Torah was the foundation. The rest of the Old Testament was the first floor. The Gospels were the second floor, and then the roof was like Paul and the other epistles. So I had completely worked it out, and this could take hours to explain, so I'll spare you the details. But completely worked it out to like where I had a very legalistic interpretation of how I should be living. But at the same time, like after having gone through several different iterations of my faith, I was like, I don't think I can hold anyone else to that legalistic standard because I thought I was right every time, and I still think I'm right, but so do they. And I can't accept a God that would like condemn them to hell for being earnestly correct or earnestly incorrect, I should say.
Yeah, and actually I think a lot of surprisingly large number of Christians actually get there, and it's why like it becomes easy to avoid arguments that way. It's like, oh well,
Mm.
they believe their stuff as sincerely as I believe
Yeah.
mine.
Well,
Um,
like my mom asked me, do you think I'm going to hell because I eat pork? And that was kind of a difficult little mini conversation, maybe preparing me for the later atheist outing. But like I had to navigate around the whole thing of like, well, the Bible does call eating unclean foods abominations. It says, "Be holy, for I am holy." Like, um, I don't know. The Isaiah says that God will come down at the end of time to destroy all the evildoers, and one of the things mentioned is eating unclean food. But at the same time, like I can't accept that my mom is like going to hell. So it was a lot of cognitive dissonance. I'll say that.
yeah, well, at least you worked through it. So Jester said $2. Well, you do dress way better. I think maybe that's in regard to our conversation about Sunday morning attire. But appreciate that, Jester. Thank you so much. I was gonna say what's interesting, like, as I talked to my mom and I asked her, like, do you think I'm going to hell for being a non-believer? And she said no. And I remember telling her, like, well, your God doesn't agree with you, right? And I remember also trying to tell her you're in a hate group that discriminates against people like me. I said, like, if you want to, you and I both know that y'all think being LGBTQ is wrong, and it's because of a couple passages, just a couple passages. But now go through and look at what that book says about non-believers. Look about what it says about the enemies of God. It's we get more than a couple passages, and it makes it very, very clear. That's like the one constant, right? The one constant throughout the Bible is, like, if you're an enemy of God and you're not on God's timing, like, oh, things are going to get all types of bad for you. So, one of the things I hold on to now is there's just no place in Christianity for people like me. But it is something that it causes cognitive dissonance because they're not willing to accept, like, oh yeah, like, we're the baddies, and, like, our Bible says our God's going to do really terrible things to you. We know that, but we don't want to admit that to other people. Look, I don't want to keep you, Seth. This was super fun. This was awesome. We should follow up and just schedule another time to hang out and chat. Maybe
this has been great.
Find something we're both interested in to talk about or react to. But I'm sorry we didn't get to talk more when we were in Kentucky, but I'm really glad we got to sit down today.
Yeah, I had stuff that evening. I had to get out of there real fast. So
you left the party early and I arrived late. Probably might be typical of both of us. But let me just see if there's any last minute things from the chat. Let me know real quick, y'all. But I think the chat really enjoyed this. I appreciate all the comments and all the questions that we've had. So I really appreciate y'all. Thanks to all the mods for holding it down. Anybody that watches later, if you have questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the comment to our video, and Seth can check them out, and I'll try to follow up as well. We'll definitely do this again, and I will be back on Sunday afternoon at 12:30 for Hot Program with my one black friend. Seth, where can the people find you, and do you have anything going on that you'd like to let people know about?
Well, I mean, I'm on Reddit and Facebook and stuff, but, like, I don't really do any activism or have a platform that I put anything out on. I got into blogging when I was in the Hebrew Roots. I shared a couple of those archive things, but I don't really do anything now. You're welcome to find me and add me on Facebook or Reddit or whatever.
This is Seth Moore on Facebook.
Yeah, Seth Moore. My user handle is AmagoMonkey, and then
and you put that in your title here, so now we know how to spell it, just like it is on screen, y'all.
Yeah, and then that's the same on Reddit. So I mean, I don't really have any kind of platform myself, though.
All right, well, we'll get you back on, and that's always a good way to follow up with you, man. This is cool for me. I don't get to interview people a lot, and I think we spend, like, so much time when we do get to talk to people, like, let's try to engage with the other side. Why? Why? They're terrible people. Why do I want to spend my Friday night hanging out with a terrible person, y'all? But nah, this was cool, man. Your story's amazing, and I'm really glad we met. And we'll definitely chat again. This was super fun. Thank you so much, Seth. We really appreciate you coming through.
If you're ever back in the Cincinnati area, hit me up.
Oh, you got it. I'm gonna let people know. I had fun in Kentucky. My dad was weirded out. Like, what are you going to Kentucky for? What the hell are you? Kentucky was cool. People in Kentucky was fine. Kentucky was cool. The food was good. I had a good time in Kentucky. Y'all can have me back in Kentucky anytime. In Cincinnati, I'm with it. So I had a great time, man. So thanks so much. Oh, and Dave said you've been on his channel too. So definitely check that out. And you can always follow up with us on Discord, and we'll be in our gather. And I'll shoot you those links too when we wrap up, Seth. Okay. All right, y'all. I'll see you on Sunday. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in, gang. All right.